Oh, here's all right. Well, there's Julia. Hello, Julia. Well,
Hey,
one
how's it
person.
going?
Okay. Not sure if others will join. You may be the only one.
All right, well, good to see you guys.
Well,
I don't
hopefully
know.
we'll be talking to future students at a minimum.
True. Yes. It's being recorded. People could watch this in 10 years. So, and I came prepared to drop incredible amounts of knowledge. So,
All right, I'm excited.
We have, well, I don't know, maybe others will pop in.
yeah.
At least you found that so that the behind the scenes, in the co-op class, did they talk about competitions? Are you new media or games?
I'm in illustration actually,
Oh,
so
okay. Not
Yeah.
even that. Okay, so it's like, so it goes like this, that a lot of employers love seeing your classes, but what they really want to see are competitions. So we thought, wouldn't it be great if we did an overview for students, like, hey, here's why we should do competition. So introduce, first thing I'm supposed to do, introduce our panelists. Myself, David Schwartz, director for the School of Interactive Games and Media. I've been doing this since, believe it or not, 2001. It's been a long time. Cornell, then RIT. And let's see, we'll go to Austin next.
Sure. Austin Willoughby, lecturer in IGM. I've been in IGM teaching now for 4 years. I've been at RIT for, I think, 10 now. So I was a student in IGM prior to teaching. And so I think I was kind of asked to be here just because I went through the grad program. And in doing that, submitted my game to a bunch of festivals. So I've got some personal experience and some experience kind of helping students as well. So,
And then Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am. It's confusing, but I have fifth year status. This is my 4th year at RIT. I started here as a transfer student with an associate degree in new media. This is my last semester. I am part of the GDD BSMS program. And I'm working on finishing my capstone and several other side projects. And I have a little bit of experience, both past and actively ongoing, with submitting to showcases and festivals.
So the gist has been, a lot of employers will say, oh, yet another homework assignment that I've seen with every student. Oh, yet another ELF, perhaps, or what they're interested in, what's different. So one of the ways to express yourself that's different, one of the ways to stand out is to submit to competitions. And one of the great ideas is some employers will check, they would love it if you win, but they love to see that you've submitted something because it means you can finish something. So, all right, so we had some standard questions. I actually kind of answered that one already. Austin, others. Why should students submit to competitions and conferences and hackathons?
yeah, I think your point is probably the main one, at least from the student perspective of, competitions kind of pre-vet your work almost in a way. So if you apply and say, like, even if you just say like submitted, or like, even if you didn't win the competition, but like, was entered into this competition or this, showcase or whatever, it's like having like, gallery curated work. It's showing that you have something that has made it past a board of like-minded people. Also just being at the competitions, obviously it's been a little weird with COVID recently, but when you go and get into these competitions and go in person, it's just like a great opportunity for networking. It's like going to GDC, but you almost have more clout at that event because it's like, yeah, I'm like somebody showing a game here. And so it gives you something to talk about. So, like you said, it stands out a lot more on a resume than just, oh, I have this project. It's like, oh, I have this project and it was good enough. So yeah, a lot of big benefits to it. And also sometimes you can win money and other things like that, which is, I think speaks for itself. So
Deadlines are also very effective. Half-finished projects.
Yeah, it's great for motivation for sure. Yeah.
Why bother with homework in classes? You could just say, here's a class and let's give the final exam. But people procrastinate. So competitions also give deadlines.
Sure.
And also the school sort of benefits in the sense that the more students that submit these things and win, it improves the school's reputation externally, which then improves the job opportunities for the students. So there's a win-win there
Sure.
as well. All right, I'm going to give Emily a chance. From a current student perspective, what is your experience in submitting to competitions or joining game jams or hackathons? What's it like to submit this? What's the pressure? How fun
Oh,
is it?
I think when you and a team or your team go to submit a project, I find that there's this moment of suddenly being honest with yourselves about, okay, what is the strong point of our project, and what would we like, not exactly sell, but what's the strength in this? Because a lot of these competitions or festivals have categories, and they also have different requirements, and different festivals might have completely different focuses. Like Games for Change, specifically, as you can guess by the title, is looking at games for change that have some type of social impact. And it's a moment where you get to look at your work and say, is this ready to submit? Because if you keep it with yourself and with your team, it's really easy to just look and say everything's great. In a way, it's sort of like a play test, but on a much bigger, more important level, because you're actually going to be submitting it, hopefully to win or get featured. Um, with game jams and hacks, I think this is kind of a little tangential, but a lot of times these do have a competition element to it. Um, I find that it kind of depends what game jam or what hack you would be participating in. Some of them are more focused on networking. I know, like WCHacks, for example, there will be a lot of like sponsors there who are like recruiting, or are willing to will come over and talk to you, over your shoulder. What are you working on? And you'll also be able to give them your resume. Um, Others aren't really as focused on the networking side of things, at least in terms of companies coming there, but it's a great way to meet other talent either within your major or outside of your major. One that I recommend, if you're interested in games or like interactive media, etc., is to always check out Global Game Jam. It happens every year in January. It's a great opportunity, like whether you're in games or not and you want to get involved, it's a great opportunity to find people. If you do art but you don't know how to code, you do code but you don't know how to do art, you do music and you want something to add music to, you're going to be very popular at one of these game jams. If you say you do music, everyone's going to want you on their team. But it's a great way to gain experience, and sort of learn how it would work in the real world working on a team that is interdisciplinary, as opposed to a lot of classes you end up working on teams that are all the same discipline as you. And that's not how it works in the real world. So you gain a lot of experience, and it's a lot of fun to, at least I think it's a lot of fun to, sit down, you start working on something, you and your team make a plan, you're working on your bit, and then like 2 hours later, you look and the rest of the game is going pretty well, and you have a part of it, and now it's a complete game. So it's a very rewarding, satisfying experience for that reason as well.
For anyone who's watching this and you haven't picked this up somewhere, at some point, you may say, I'm trying to get a co-op, and to get a co-op, I need a co-op. So to get a job, have a job, and so forth. So having projects on your resume is a great way of filling out your resume, but they look like work. So you have selected projects, featured projects, and very often students will say, from first year to second year, well, I just don't have all that much. Oh, Global Game Jam. Bam, you got something on the resume under selected projects. And what's great about it is it happens. It's going to happen that weekend. So you're not sitting there working on it. You may work on it afterwards. So sometimes those short jams can be really good. And a shout out for Lindsay Herkenber and IGM Insights. You can see the jams and hackathons every week in the newsletter. All right, let's see. What are some tips and tricks you have for students to think about when they're submitting? I'll start with Austin and then jump to Emily.
Sure. Yeah, for like submitting to large scale, well, maybe not even large scale, but just submitting to any kind of competition. I think the one thing that people oftentimes miss or forget to do is kind of tailor the materials you have towards, Emily was saying earlier, some of these events are like very targeted in a specific category, or some of these competitions will ask you like, oh, are you submitting to the multiplayer category, or are you submitting to like the co-op category, or are you submitting to the party game category? Like if you have this one game that could fit all these categories, which one are you submitting to? And so, I think it's kind of key to target your materials at the type of competition that you're submitting to. So if it's one that's very serious, you want to have very formalized documents. Like I know when you submit to something like Indiecade, Indiecade is kind of this worldwide competition, and so they want like a ton of information about like your project structure and your team, and how you've been working on it, and kind of like see the progress of your game and what you're working towards, and even things like business plans. So that is very different than submitting to something smaller like RPI Game Fest or even IGM Showcase, where instead you are asked for a very different set of materials. So just kind of trying to fit the quote unquote vibe of the competition and targeting what you are doing to fit that. Same thing you would do for like a resume, right? If I'm applying to a job as like a back end systems engineer, I'm not going to put a bunch of front end development jobs on my resume. I'm going to put back end systems jobs on there. So.
And Emily, any tips or tricks?
So this first one, I don't know if it really qualifies as a tip or trick, but make sure you read all of the requirements. Sometimes they throw some, I don't know if I want to say curveballs, but some unexpected requirements at you. Just recently, one of my teams actually found out that we weren't eligible to submit to this year's Game for Change because it has a specific window of when your game needs to be released. So our current plan is to release at the end of 2022, which means we're not eligible for the 2022 Games for Change. We're eligible for the 2023, which is very strange, but I guess that's just how they organize it. I don't really understand it, but this was something that, we were like, all right, we're going to submit. And then we're like, well, all right, we'll come back in a year from now. I would suppose another tip or trick would be to sort of work on documentation early, because you might find that any documentation with projects can actually just sort of be copied and pasted into some of the submission material, especially if your team does promotional work already. So longer term projects, you might have a website, you might have a Twitter. If you've been updating this frequently, if you record gameplay videos already, then you already have a lot of content that's probably going to satisfy the requirements, or at the very least, you're not going to have to start from nothing and have to scramble to get something done. And lastly, I would say for any project, you would want to have a conversation with teammates about what your goal is for the project. Some classes, you'll get the sense that everyone is just here because this is a class they had to take, so they're going to do the project, get their grade, and go home. Whereas some classes like production studios, or even those required courses, you might have a project that sort of evolves like, oh yeah, I liked working with these people, we had fun on this project. Have that conversation like early on to see like, do we want to continue this? I know at least a couple of other teams that I know right now who are in production studios, and they've been working on projects that started as a class thing, but they all liked each other, and now they have projects that are like well over a year into development, and projects like that stand out over the things that you made in a few weeks one semester. And having a conversation early on about what you want to do with that could lead to one of those big projects if you like your teammates and you like the project you're working on.
So let's see. I heard the IGM showcase. That's actually one of the things that we were curious about. Do you have any advice for submitting to the IGM showcase?
Is this a
I
question
actually
for
have a
me
link
or
here.
Emily or both of us?
Oh, that me and Austin. For those watching, Lindsay said, Dave, make sure you ask these questions. Otherwise, we'll just sit there and talk randomly.
I can,
I'll start with Austin. I'll
Yeah,
put the link
I can
in
provide
chat.
some insight. So just for some context, if people aren't aware, IGM runs a game showcase now. This will be our third time running it, I think.
Yeah,
But we run a game showcase every year. We've been doing it the last couple of years, and it's an opportunity basically for RIT students, IGM students to submit games and kind of go through the competition process on a smaller scale than something like Indiecade or Boston Fig or something. So I think we've been talking about possibly opening it up in the future as well. So hopefully it'll grow into something even bigger. But so there's a bunch of different categories you can apply to the categories that you think your game fits to. And so just advice for applying to those things, as Emily said, right? Make sure you read the requirements of what you are submitting to. Anecdotally, when we were submitting our capstone game for a bunch of stuff, I think we were submitting to, it might have been when we submitted to RPI, or maybe it was Boston Fig or something like that. And we found out like the day of the submissions that there was like a requirement we missed, which was like, make a trailer for your game. And so I remember I was up until like 3 a.m. editing like a trailer from like found footage that I had in our Google Drive. So,
God.
I think make sure you're looking at the requirements ahead of time. That way you can start putting together materials and make sure you are putting together the materials as nicely as you can. This is true for the IGM showcase or anything else, but the more organized your materials and the more accurate your materials are to what they are asking for, the kinder I think that the judges are going to look upon your project, because they're not going to be frustrated trying to figure out what information you are giving them. So
Yeah, for those that are watching this or might think, why should I bother? It's IGM. I need to get out there. Well, absolutely apply to different things. There's no harm in taking something that's gone through IGM and then sending it elsewhere. Now you got 2 things on your multi-award winning project. And on top of it, we've got some game industries. We've got some other folks. There's some swag and whatnot. We're trying to build this out into something bigger. So the more folks that get involved, then the more we can actually promote this in the future. And yeah, it would be nice to have this as a national competition, but everything has to start somewhere. So we're iterating on this. And these are real awards. There are real prizes here.
To add on to what you were saying, Dave, and I probably should promote this a little bit. The IGM showcase, right? IGM has been around a long time. We have a lot of friends in the industry. And so a large number of the judges are like people from large game companies. I know for technical excellence, just because that's the category I run, we have a judge from Epic Games, works on Fortnite. We have a judge from Oxide Games. We have a judge from Deviation Games. We might have a judge from Unity. So, we have people from big games and big game companies and adjacent companies. So getting their eyes on your project, if you make something really good and submit it, it can potentially open doors for you.
So, all right. Actually, so that's a nice lead in. Emily actually discussed this a little bit. We use the term passion project. I got that from somebody else, and I used to say personal project. Passion project comes from the Working Man Studios here in Rochester, Jason Arena. Things that people do on the side. And so for Emily, where do these passion projects come from? What's the connection? You could spend a little bit more, give a little bit more details on that.
Yeah, so I think that there's I think in a lot of like technical industries, a lot of companies really look for those passion projects in short because they want to see that you actually are passionate about the projects that you work on, and not just here to fulfill a requirement. I think that usually what they represent, or like what a good passion project represents, is something that you excel at or something that you are really interested in. Um, and I think this is important because you might, if you're just doing what you're doing in class, depending on your classes, you might have a bunch of work that isn't really representative of what you want to do. And maybe it'll get you a job, but it might not get you the job that you want. And then you're going to be miserable. Whereas, if I have a few projects that are really focused on like design and narrative. And there's definitely like a fair amount of code and like fun technical things in there. But I think that these projects really paint the picture of like me and what's valuable to me, which I think would set me apart, or, in anyone's case, would set them apart from everyone else. So you might be billing yourself as someone who would fit in sort of like this almost perfect niche in a company, because a lot of times depends on the studio, depends on the company, but they're looking for the person who stands out, and stand out might not necessarily mean like I am the best programmer, or I am the best of this. Sometimes it means like you're the right fit for the culture and the company values. Or they look and they say, you're making games a lot like the kind of games that we want to make, or that we do make. You would fit right in here. It's a way to express yourself, I would say. And it's a way, and honestly, like on a more personal note, most of us are in games or whatever the major may be because we like it. I think there probably are some people who might have joined games like because they had to, or because they're like,
It
well, like
happens once in a while. Once
like-
in a while, there are a few parents like, no, you will do games. I don't want to do games. I want to make cards. No, you will make games. Yeah, I know it seems a little weird. It does happen once in a while. Not often, but yeah.
I think that sometimes we can get pretty caught up in the production grind of getting a thing in for a grade that we start to kind of burn ourselves out. Whereas if there's something that you've really been wanting to make, dedicating like a little bit of time to work on it is going to keep your own personal passion and interest in the field going. That's not to say you should burn yourself out to get yet another project on your resume, but rather really consider what you want to work on and what is going to be a good expression of you and your talents and abilities. Sometimes you might get lucky and your passion project will be a school project, or a school project will be your passion project, etc. But I think that working on something that you are going to be satisfied on is going to be really good for you personally and your own personal sense of fulfillment.
And it's for the new media students that I do realize, hopefully you are still here. You hear game, and we get it. There are a lot of game folk in the department. There are some fascinating things that you can do. For some, when I was teaching the co-op class, I would often say one of your passion projects can be your portfolio. Your website, your portfolio itself is a passion project. Show companies out there how you present yourself, how you organize information, how you design it. It's fascinating. It's like you get a twofer. Your own portfolio is the passion project. There's some other things too. Look into the fields of creative development, advertising. I often say creative industry day. Take a look at the companies there. Get some sense what the products are. Imagine your passion project happens to be something that looks a little bit like what another company might have done. Something's like, here's a freebie. I've got a silicone ring and it's iridescent. If you take a look at some silicone ring websites, they're pictures of the rings, real-time illumination. You can do this with Unity and Unreal, and a lot of creatives out there, doesn't have to be programming. Oh, imagine that. I was thinking about actually writing the company. You need to hire IGM students. We can do this for you. And I haven't forgot about Kat, you too. Look around. In fact, volunteering, find nonprofits, take a look at their websites and see, oh, maybe they might benefit from a better site, maybe an app or whatnot. and this would be amazing for new media students. Essentially, you could do something that somebody might say, wait a minute, yeah, I'd like that. How could you do more of this? You create a job for yourself. In fact, some new media students might be able to do this more so than others. And then for those that are watching outside of IGM, same advice. There's a lot to be said for that. I often, when I give advice, I will say, take a class project, extend it, independent study. We have a number of faculty that have research funding. They're going to be picky about who's, the students that work with them, but research, that counts. That can be something that's on the side. All right, so from there, let's see. Are there any opportunities that come to mind when you that you recommend students submitting to? Okay, I think I know what this is. One of the things, Julia caught this, anyone who's didn't quite catch this from the beginning, you hit Google on this, where's the list of all the student competitions? And you can't just do games. So if you're new media, look for interactive development, creative development. On the game side, yeah, games. And Lindsay actually banged out a list. I just threw it into Notepad. There's actually quite a long list, and we were debating, do we do a Google Doc? Do we do GitHub? Should we just throw it on Wikipedia, put it on the IGM website? There are a whole bunch of sites out there that try to compile this, but they're not comprehensive. The moral of the story is, yeah, you have to Google. Some of the big ones are Indiecade, Boston Fig, IGF. It's been a dream of mine, RIT students winning the Independent Game Festival. We have won Imagine Cup. We have won Intel. Indiecade, so there are a lot of different things. We've gotten some significant prizes from all of these. Moral of the story also is, you might think, oh, I'll never get it. IGM students and RIT students, in fact, some CAT students, I was looking up other competitions, some CAT students won these things too. We generally win something 2-3 times a year. That means somebody who's hopefully watching this, it may be you. Yes, you might be the ones that actually win this. I'm not making this up. I do the Princeton Review. I have to look up all this information. I found the teams, but they do win things. So if you figure, there are about 800 IGM students, say there's a team of 4, your odds are pretty good winning a national competition, but you have to submit for it. So if you're not sure, we're working on this. Worst case, we'll just send an email with a list of competitions. And the other thing too, because there are a whole bunch of competitions, not everyone's going to think to do it. A lot of students won't get around to it. They won't follow the rules. I love that idea of make sure you know what's there. Think about all the people that wish they would have got into a competition that didn't get there. So if you're one of the teams that do actually submit, you may be 1 out of 100 teams that got there, or 1 out of 50 teams. The odds for that are actually, your chance of winning go way up. And even if you don't win, finalist, semi-finalist, runner-up. This is cool. Yeah, so there's a long list there. We'll get you that list. We just don't know where. We'll figure it out. Let's see.
Dave, if I could plug one more thing.
Go for it.
That I didn't see on that list. One thing that I think a lot of people can, and Emily, I think you can talk quite a lot about this, but not necessarily just competitions, but opportunities for getting your game funded, which could then lead to competitions. Even on campus, we have things like Magic Maker and others such opportunities, which can lead to great success in these different things. So, take any opportunity you can.
Yeah, that's one of the things that shows up every now and then. Magic Makers runs and runs and runs, and sometimes they don't have a lot of submissions. They're probably, unless you're doing something wackadoodle, it'll probably count as co-op. You do have to, it's not auto, but it usually counts as co-op. There's real money in here. Yeah, thank you for the reminder, Magic Makers. There have been some times when they don't have a lot of applications, and they will work with you. It's not like you submit it to a black hole. You can go to Magic, you can talk with Aaron, who's there. You can talk to David Long. You can ask for some advice of their faculty that are situated there. They're not banished from IGM. We have offices in IGM. Yeah, some of the faculty in IGM are there. One day my office will, I've been thinking about moving my office there. Thank you on the shout out for Magic. So Magic Makers.
Yeah, Emily,
yeah,
I
go
know
for it.
you're a part of that program, or at least I believe you're still a part of it, right? Or were you in previous
So
semesters?
I can talk a little bit about that. So Magic Maker does accept a wide variety of projects. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a game, interactive media. Um, they do, I mean, it depends on which, submission you're submitting to. They also do things like films, or other like experimental projects. What they're really looking for is a team that is very self-aware, and can show that they have what it takes to deliver on their ideas and like use the money that they're given wisely. My team had been given, we had a team of 5, which is a bit more than what they technically support. But our team decided or agreed to divide up the money that we got. You get a stipend based on how many team members you have. So we split, I think it was 10K for 5 people over the summer. And yeah, so it was just for the summer term. And it was really like the experience of being a full-time indie developer. We were very autonomous, but we also reported back to Magic and back to our mentors, many of whom were Rockstar developers. So it was kind of that experience of indie studio that has a publisher, because that is exactly what it was. And they actually continue to support students beyond that. In fact, if you do not actually have to be a part of Magic Maker to contact Magic Spell Studios and say, hey, I've got a thing that I would like to release. They'll meet with you. They'll look at what you have. And it's not like they're going to do it for every single product they submit. There's going to be a bar. But they are a publishing studio. They, if you say, I want help getting my mostly done game on Steam, they'll help you with that. They can help you with all of the publishing stuff. Steam, other platforms, etc. It's definitely harder to actually get funding from them for Magic Maker, but it's a very similar process to submitting to a festival. Not only do you show the product itself, like whatever you're working on, whatever your current demo is, but all that behind the scenes stuff, and like a promotional video to sort of show what the game or project is all about. And give an idea of like behind the scenes, show we're a competent team that can do this. And similar to other like festivals, that's even more resume experience. Like if you can say, hey, not only do I have this passion project, I had this passion project that, this studio actually funded, and we are working full time, and we have this experience of working full time on a project. That again, that's something that differentiates you from just people who have a degree and a few side projects.
In fact, another shout out for Magic. Little side note that does tie into the whole competition thing. The way IGM came into existence came out of computing. So there's not an awful lot of art, and the likelihood of us ever being an art program, it's not going to happen. We would need to hire another 50 faculty. However, we have the College of Art and Design, and they're working on game arts. So one of the ways to connect with the other kind of design, not the software design, but the artistic design, visual design, sound design, and so forth, is to walk over to CAD, and you might say, well, I'm not sure we're going to go Magic. And this is where they're often called creative collisions, where people will connect. Perhaps if you go there and say, look, we have this thing, but we're missing another half of this project, Magic can help you connect. So, and if your stuff looks better, yeah, that visual appeal goes a long way for for the competitions. New media students, you too. We have 2 of our new media faculty. They're in Magic. Michelle Harris and Carlos Castellanos are there. Adam Smith is over in Magic. So yeah, in terms of your capstone project and so forth, Magic is perfect for new media because the design development groups to connect. So just a shout out for Magic to help flesh these things out. Just add in that sort of robustness and the visual appeal. Let's see, a few more questions. Julie, do you have any questions?
Yeah, what sort of projects do you usually see in the Magic Maker program? Like what kind of things do people apply for? I know you talked about like films and things outside of the game realm, but
Yeah, so I can try and answer that. So to be honest, I haven't been a part of I'm not a Magic Spell Studios employee, so I'm not really a part of the screening or approval process. What I have seen like short films. I've seen like longer productions. In terms of interactive media, the projects that I have seen have usually been prototypes of what I would call sort of unique experiences. If some idea for a new VR interaction, or in my case, in many other cases, a game prototype or a game demo. That is a very solid proof of concept, but needs a lot of work. So I don't think there would be stuff like
Oh, I gotta get a hold of David Long. Hey, they gotta update the website. David Long, if you're watching this, update your website.
Oh no, that's a few years behind
Yeah.
schedule.
I'm saying they're like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like Woodstock is Crazy Plates got released, Fragile Equilibrium got released. The Camera That Bleeds came out of Magic and CAD, and some IGM in there as well. Let's see, Magic Maker. Let's try. Nope, they're a little dated here. All right, I've got.
Yeah, even
I'm
some of
actually
their
meeting with David Long tomorrow, so I'm gonna tell him.
I think one of their bigger projects right now, That Damn Goat, should be on there. They've been working on that one for a while, and
that one's been flying along.
I am very familiar with that project.
Can you say a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. Just to kind of finish off, add on to Emily's answer to Julia's question. I think over in Magic, Rob Mostyn and Aaron Nebor are kind of the two that facilitate the running of the Magic Maker program, and both of them are very laid back and very easy to talk to, and will I'm sure be very glad to meet up with students and talk about the program. So they can probably answer any questions that you might have about it. And they're very, very available and accessible to answer questions. So yeah, That Damn Goat I can talk about. That's another project going on over in Magic, a little bit tangential to the topic of the night, but oh, my camera is freaking out again. The project is basically just a project that is being run through Magic. It is kind of Magic's own project rather than a student project that has been submitted. And it's like a large scale game project. We have probably at this point 6 or 7 faculty plus the Magic staff plus probably 10 plus student workers working on it. And in the duration of the project, I've probably had 20 student workers working on it. And yeah, it's a game being made. We have right now 4 dev students, and probably we just hired a bunch of new artists. So we've got 2D, 3D artists, UI developers, audio engineers, level designers, all that kind of stuff. So very cool project to work on. And like Dave said, working on it and being in Magic kind of leads you into all these different opportunities where it's just oh yeah, I'm meeting all these people that I never would have had the opportunity to meet otherwise. So
this came out of Magic. Owen Gottlieb is on, for the students watching, the sabbatical is something you apply for as faculty member. You get a break. You're not allowed, it's not a vacation. You have to go just research to say, all right, you've done a lot of work. And so Owen Gottlieb is on research this year. So when he comes back, he's got all kinds of exciting projects. So Lost and Found is one of the projects that he and Ian Schreiber, who's no longer here, though he's still local, worked on. Games with religious mechanics. So that's one of the things that came out of Magic. And one of the things that I guess I'll do a little shout out for my own stuff. RIT, GIS. Easier to find that way.
Lost and Found also has won a number of competitions.
Oh
and,
yeah,
and such. So
and I've done some work with in the world of GIS, Geographic Information Sciences. Let's see. Oh God, here it is. NSFRU. I can find some good links here.
To also continue, I just wanted to mention that it's every now and again, somewhat frequently, Magic Spell Studios does put out calls for like additional talent. So if you might not be someone who has a ready project that you're ready to submit, but you're looking for like maybe a co-op or like a side job, something like that. It's definitely worth following them on social media, because they frequently will put out those we're seeking a full-time developer, or we're seeking someone for this summer for 3D or 2D, etc. So there are a lot of opportunities that come through them, whether it's something that they're doing in-house
There we go.
or something like part of the Magic Maker program.
There you go. Yeah. So sorry about that. I was like, I always have to try to remember my own links. Oh man, it's so slow. I'll just do it this way. Yeah. So we've actually done some research in the Magic Center with disaster management, geographic information sciences, and gameplay. So there's some research projects that have happened there. And then on top of it, we had a project for a little while, Dapper NBA Top Shots. Crypto, the company that does this, NBA Top Shots, gave Magic some money. So I worked with David Long, and we hired a few students to do some development in crypto, blockchain, essentially designing games on the blockchain, not necessarily cryptocurrency, but games as NFTs. And we did some preliminary work, and I actually have a meeting with the company that actually helps fund the company that makes NBA Top Shots. That's happening tomorrow. The moral of the story is it's not so much a shout out for the research projects and the things, but the idea by hanging out in the labs, going to visit Magic, going to visit faculty, finding out what's going on, that can actually spur on some things as well. Plus the students that are looking for co-op, yeah, if by staying connected, when money happens, we're usually looking for students. I have a couple active projects right now. One of them is in resilience game design, a kind of wargaming for critical infrastructure and cybersecurity. We hired 3 students. I'm hoping funding continues there. And that's actually an outgrowth of the Magic work as well. Julie, other questions? You're one audience member.
I think you might have covered this earlier, but is that list, like all these links that you've posted, going to be available somewhere, or like is the chat accessible?
Yeah, so the
This
recording will capture all this. And
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
we're going to make those links available. Plus, just hit Google and flesh this out. This has been a long time coming. Just, you're not the only one who's asked this. And there are more that are there. So we want to set this up, Google Doc, GitHub, Wikipedia, something where we can actually keep it more alive. I did, for, again, the new media students, hope you're still with us. Look for games and creative development. Look for competitions and creative development. Just look under interactive development and competitions and so forth. You're going to see a bunch of stuff that is out there. It's not just games and so forth. Yeah, we're kind of coming to the end. Any closing thoughts? Emily, Austin, other advice, anything that we didn't ask that you're thinking of?
I think we kind of covered everything that I would want to bring up. I think the kind of summary of it is just, try and work on projects that you find interesting and submit them to competitions. Don't be afraid to submit them to competitions. I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen is people say no, but best case scenario, even if you don't think your thing is good enough, chances are it probably is good enough.
All the people that don't submit, you submit.
Yeah,
you've already won if you've submitted it.
Yeah, there really is no like harm in submitting stuff. I mean, obviously, don't submit your project that you've been working on for like 3 days and is nowhere near complete. But you know, if you have something and you're like, oh, well, I don't know if it's good enough, like just submit it and you might, you know, turn out better than you think you might. So
The IGM showcase specifically is pretty unique in that the judges are actually committed to sending you feedback. It really, it's not for the bigger competitions. It's rare for them to give specific individual feedback because of the sheer volume of submissions that they get. IGM, it's currently small. Like if it grows, I'm not sure if the showcase is going to continue to remain feedback as one of their goals. But our team got, like last year, got feedback from professors and also industry professionals. So at a minimum for, you know, anyone who needs their product in, you know, whatever you're working on, your project, in front of people to test it and get feedback on, a submission can be that for the showcase. Some you can actually check in other submissions in their FAQs. That's typically where you'll see a line or a question. Do I get feedback no matter, even if I lose? Every now and then it'll say yeah, but a lot of times they do say no. But this can be another opportunity to get more eyes on your game. And even if you don't win or don't get it accepted, you're still going to get some good feedback. Sometimes, and I was going to mention, sometimes some festivals getting accepted at all is an accolade. I think Games for Change is one of them, getting accepted even if you're not even a finalist. There was another one, I think it was the Akron Games Festival. You know, we had a project on a different team that was featured there. That's again an accolade, like, hey, we were accepted as worthy of being in this festival, is an accolade in and of itself. So bottom line, again, is don't be afraid to submit.
I should have, I just remembered two things. What's 2 words? Well, technically there's an acronym in there. What's the big student showcase we all forgot about? RIT student showcase. Imagine RIT.
Imagine RIT, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's also a really big one. Yep.
I was thinking like, gee, I feel like I'm forgetting something. So big shout out for Imagine RIT. Not a competition, though there is a little bit of a competition in there, in the sense that not everyone gets the good area, like
Yeah.
the Fieldhouse and TAD and the Policini Center. And one of my projects, it was a big thing years ago, back in 2011, we got an award. I'm like, wait, there are awards? I didn't even realize there were audience awards. So the trustees go around and we have a ribbon that's over in Saunders. You can see the ribbon. Yeah, so there are awards at Imagine RIT. The pandemic has obviously messed it up. It wasn't quite the same. It will come back in some form. So that's the big one. And then there was a second thing I should have mentioned. For those that have waited to the end or just on the recording, one of the big questions that comes out, say, okay, so let's say we do submit to a competition. A lot of these things say, oh, you have to go, or you have to pay to, register. IGM can cover it. We have funding. It's called the IGM Student Fund. Many alumni, though, there are some companies out there, there are alumni who've given, there's some faculty who've actually given to it. Roar Day, we won an award, got a couple thousand. There's money in there. If you win something, or if you get asked to go, you submit something and you're asked to go present it, you're on stage or you have people, there are judges, there's panelists, there's whatever, you let us know. I mean, if it's $20,000, okay, there's a limit to what we can do, but you can apply for funding from IGM. We can probably cover a large part of it. The college, GCCIS, has student travel funding. Some of you may be honor students. I'm one of the honors reps. That has funding. So don't let funding be a barrier. There's a lot of money. We want to support your success. So please let us know. Get the stuff submitted. Don't worry about the bill. We'll figure it out somehow. So that's like, oh yeah, I probably should have mentioned that. Well, for those that made it to the end, think about like you got there. You know about the funding. I think that's it. Emily and Austin, thanks for doing this. And Julia, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
How did you find
Thank
out
you,
about
guys.
this? How did you know about this?
It was posted in the Student Makers Guild. I believe Emily sent the link to it. So
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
hoping I would get more people last minute. I actually had several people send me DMs like, "Oh, good luck! It's gonna be great." I'm like, "Well, why don't you come watch then?" But
Yeah,
okay.
they're laws.
To any of you who did that and are now watching as the recording, well, thanks for checking out the recording. I guess.
Yeah, it's like
Would have been nice to have you here, but that's okay.
And then there's the next director's dialogue. It's like, oh, I should advertise the next thing. It's the GDC boot camp. Like how to deal with GDC, especially it's like, okay, I've been to GDC quite a few years, many years. And I have some advice, and we'll be joined by some others from around the greater Rochester community who might be interested. So thanks everybody. Thanks again for helping out. Thanks Julie for joining us.
thank you
All
guys.
right, and
Thanks,
stopping
Dave.
the recording. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
See ya.
Okay,
Have a good
bye-bye.
one.